Pan Asian Boxing Association heavyweight title. The first fight tonight should be a great one. It is a rematch, a fight that was here in Louisiana back in July as Jeff Wooden went up against Derrick Banks. It turned out a split decision win by Wooden. What do they do different in the rematch tonight?
You know, it was a very close fight, 96-94, all three judges, one of them dissenting. Both camps, Wooden's and Banks both wanted this rematch. Both guys are going to make some changes, but oftentimes when you do that in a rematch, guys, they think they're going to get what they got the first time and they're going to take a little bit more, and it doesn't really work out. The other guy overcompensates. Should be a good matchup.
Well, that'll be our first fight that's coming up on our heavyweight explosion, so drag up a chair and enjoy it as Cedric Kushner brings you the heavyweight explosion from Lake Charles, Louisiana tonight. Cedric Kushner's heavyweight explosion is brought to you by Corona Extra, La Cerveza Más Fina, and by Players Island Casino in Lake Charles, Louisiana, where you can find excitement the Players way. Well, it's been a rather hot, muggy day here in Lake Charles, but a very comfortable night here at the Civic Center. And the crowd is filed in to get ready for the first fight of the night. Let's head upstairs for the introduction of our first fight. Here's our ring announcer, Mark Bureau.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lake Charles Civic Center in Lake Charles, Louisiana, as Cedric Kushner Promotions in association with Players Island Casino Hotel, USSB, and Corona Beer, La Cerveza Más Fina presents the Heavyweight Explosion. Tonight's bouts are under the auspices of the Louisiana State Boxing and Wrestling Commission. The chairman in attendance is Fielding Lewis. Also in attendance, Vice Chairman Buddy Embanado Jr., Secretary Treasurer Alvin Topham. This is your first heavyweight explosion bout of the evening, scheduled for 10 rounds. Your referee from Metairie, Louisiana, Johnny Femia Jr. Introducing now the principals first. In the blue corner to my right, wearing the black trunks with gold accessories, he weighs in at 227 pounds. His professional record reads 13 victories, 3 defeats, 1 draw, and 7 wins coming by way of knockout. He hails from Detroit, Michigan. Here is Dangerous Derrick Banks. His opponent in the red corner, wearing the white trunks, weighing in at 222 pounds, with a professional record of 18 victories, 6 defeats, 11 wins coming by way of knockout. He hails from Marianna, Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Jazzy Jeff Wooden. 10 rounds, heavyweights.
All right, gentlemen, you were given your pre-fight instructions in the dressing room. I caution you once again, obey my commands at all times, protect yourself at all times. This is going to be a legal blow here, all right? We're fine over here. Touch your gloves, come out the sound of the bell.
Well, the rules will be governing our fight here tonight in Louisiana. 10-point must, no knockdown, 3 knockdown rule, no standing out. Saved by the bell in any round, only the referee can stop the fight. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape for both these fighters. Again, you can see the weight somewhat equal. Certainly the height is, reach is right on. You can see a couple of young fighters as they battle to try to get on the road. We're ready to go for round 1. Let's take it upstairs, and here we go. Our co-feature of the night, Jeff Wooden again in the white with the black, and Derrick Dangerous Banks in the solid black. Rematch. We talked about it at the top of the show. Sometimes can be a little disappointing. Hopefully tonight that's not the rule of thumb, because we could get a pretty good fight out of this thing, Bob.
No, I think, both guys are at a good point in their career for, putting it all on the line. It's not a main event heavyweight explosion, Bill, but it's a perfect co-feature. One of these guys is going to go back to the main event status here, and the other one's going to go to the back of the class. I'll tell you something, Wooden has always impressed me with his body punching. For a southpaw coming from that stance, he's a great body puncher. He works well on both sides, and I would never, go to the ropes like Banks did in their first fight and give him that body work, because he does a good job of it. Remember in the Hassan Rockman fight, Wooden had Rockman just wailing away at his body. Really did a lot of damage with that style in that fight. But you can see Banks blessed with a ton of athleticism. He's got the quickness, and with that quickness comes punching power. If he stays in the middle of the ring, I think it's tough for Woody to match him for that speed.
You mentioned a key factor of the fight. In the first fight, it was Banks languishing on the ropes, trying to draw Wooden to it. Wooden bit the bait. He did win the fight. Interesting enough, 96-94 in all three cards. It was a split decision. Two going to the winner, Wooden, and the other going to Banks on the split. So interesting style, and as Bob pointed out, Banks wants to stay right where he is. At least his corner wants him to stay there. That's the center of the ring.
But he's got to do more, you know. Derrick Banks can't just sit there and make those nice feints and make those nice moves and parry with Jeff Wooden in this fight. He's got to get a little bit busier. And, you know, the other guy's moving forward and you're moving backwards. You know, the other guy's winning the fight. Even all other things held constant. And that's what Wooden's going to have in his favor is the fact that he's pretty much moving forward.
By the way, Wooden will be working in a comfortable corner tonight. His brother James will be working inside the ropes along with his manager, cornerman tonight, Arnie Rosenthal. Other side, Chuck McGregor. And of course, to always have his fighters in excellent condition along with Dick Wood. Be working in that corner again with, again, Banks over in the corner. Round number one, you see a half a minute to go. You know, Bob, we talk so much about a normal right-hander trying to overcome a southpaw. Well, Banks has been there, done that in the first fight. Shouldn't be a problem for him, particularly here in the rematch.
But he's, you know, Wooden is a good southpaw. I was saying, see how their feet are getting tangled up. They're both guys trying to get the positioning, the outside foot. But Wooden's got a good jab to go with that good body work, which makes him, you know, kind of an anomaly as a fighter. He's not, you know, not too many guys have those two gifts.
USSB and our television network around the world enjoying heavyweight explosion. Thanks for joining us tonight. Sam Smith along with Bob Spagnola. Good look. Team Banks. That is Chuck McGregor outside the ropes.
Real good. All right.
Banks just helped us with the air conditioning.
This round we're going to switch back. We're going to start coming back the other way. I want your left hand up more, and I want you working off the jab. Jab and hook. Try to make him bring his right hand up. He's staying open for sweeping right hands and body shots. Look at me. You see this pace? You see this pace he just fought in the first round? He don't want to fight. He don't want a lot of work tonight.
That's what he's trying to do.
He's trying to pace himself. He's trying to put it in where he wants it. He wants to fight a slow pace for 3 or 4 rounds, pick it up in the middle rounds and finish. Make him fight more than he wants to. Make him stay busy.
Start cracking him some, baby.
Interesting scenario by Chuck McGregor as he sends Banks out to answer the bell for round 2. Derrick Banks hailing from Detroit, Michigan, training out in the Arizona area with Chuck McGregor. Answers the bell against Jazzy Jeff Wooden. Wooden from Marietta, Florida. He's 31, Banks is 27, and again, Wooden is the one in the white trunks. He won the first of the battle back in July. This is the rematch. Interesting enough, both the fights have come here in the state of Louisiana. How about that first round, Bob?
Well, I had the round even. You know, it's funny, but right there was the first significant combination landed by either man in the fight. Even though they'd gone 10 rounds before, the first round was a feeling out process. They've got to, you know, they're sitting there, they're feinting, they're jockeying for position. You got a southpaw against an orthodox fighter. So, but, you know, one of them's got to take charge. One of them's got to try to make something happen. I think Banks is the one that's got to do that. That's what Chuck was telling him. Don't go with that slow pace. Don't let him lull you into that and pick his spots to fight. You've got to set the pace.
They thought Wooden would go 3 rather cautious, slower rounds if he dictated. Then picking up on the end rounds as his combination gets in on Banks. Certainly McGregor and company with Banks want to try to accelerate it here in round 2. And I tell you what, Jeff Wooden is responding very well to the pace as well, Bob.
Now, see, I honestly think, you know, Wooden has had the tougher opposition in his career. You know, he's been there in the bigger fights against the tougher opposition. And he's got that good jab. He throws out that right jab, and he's landed it a couple good times. Banks is the quicker guy. He wants to get in and get out, but I think Wooden's been a little bit more successful thus far in this fight at the halfway point of round 2.
Wooden, by the way, has been stopped only twice in his career, somewhat of a fluke against Everton Davis. That was back in June of '94 in the 4th round. Hasim Rahman stopped him after 9 rounds in July of '97, a little over a year ago. Other losses, names like Chris Bird, James Gaines, like Brandon Davis too, as they pick up the pace even more in round 2.
See, see, Wooden got off a good combination, then Banks tried to get it back. But Banks should be getting his stuff first and then let Wooden get it back. Another good combination landed by both fighters.
There's one thing that is obvious early on in the fight in round number 2. Both of these punchers do have some power. You can see him staggering the other fighter back. Even if it's a glancing blow, it has got some power behind it. Under a half a minute to go in the second round.
Give me 2, Woody. Come on, double it. That's nice.
You see Wooden? Lead left jab just kind of straight in blitz. Then he hooks it on Banks' head. Closing seconds of round 2. Banks tries to take it to him in a flurry at the end of the round. Johnny Femia Jr., the referee, almost got himself in the wrong place at the right time. Almost got blocked by Wooden. Let's dive back into Banks' corner here.
Don't let him steal it, okay?
Get him going. Stay nice and relaxed. Real relaxed.
Take a look at some of the action in that round 2.
Left lead's working nice.
Here we see both fighters. I thought Wooden stole the round at the end of this round. He landed a good straight left hand and then finished with a couple of jabs. This is the combination I'm talking about. That left hand wasn't really right on the mark, but it got roars from the crowd and then a couple of jabs there to end the round.
Kind of pecked his way to a possible victory in that round. That's 2. We head for 3.
Make a move at him. Pick it up body when you get close.
Derrick Banks comes to the center of the ring. This is round 3 on the heavyweight explosion. Jeff Wooden in the white. Jazzy Jeff working on an 18-6-0 record. Banks at 13-3-1 on the explosion. Sam Smith, Vibes Spagnola, and Greg Jacket will be joining us as we welcome you to the Lake Charles Civic Center for the explosion tonight. Good straight right hand again by Wooden. Lands on the target on Banks' face.
Banks is the quicker fighter. He's really got a lot of talent. He's sitting there breaking down in front of Wooden and you know, making some nice moves and some nice steps, but he's not punching off it as much. Wooden, on the other hand, every once in a while he just steps right down in the middle and tries to, you know, hit that power right jab. Breaks Derrick Banks' rhythm with it. You know, Derrick's breaking down and he's jockeying Jeff Wooden out of position, but he's not punching so much off of there. Wooden's making his punches count more.
Wooden is a fighter, and you've already mentioned the athleticism, certainly at Banks. Wooden's almost certainly being the southpaw, maybe part of it here. Almost looks a little clumsy, looks like he doesn't do the things as crisply as he'd like. But then once he sits down at a punch, he can certainly level you.
He's not even a huge puncher. It's just he's a veteran fighter. He's a smart guy. And you look at Jeff, you know, no disrespect to him, but I can tell he's not in the best shape of his life right now. He's in a, you know, he's in a big fight, kind of a crossroads fight, but you can see the way he's, you know, his anatomy is that he missed a few sit-ups here. Banks, on the other hand, is stellar. I mean, he looks like he's chiseled and he's been up there in the mountains in Colorado preparing for this fight. But you know, you can throw all that out the window when the fight starts. Woody's a fighter. Now you see the quickness of Banks there, lands a 3-punch combination, but Wooden kind of rolls it. He looks for lands an uppercut to the body and then a straight left hand back and Banks to the ropes.
Banks bouncing off the ropes again, not electing to stay there as he did in the first fight between the two fighters that Wooden won on a split decision. Banks bouncing his way back out. Wooden, by the way, got off to a stellar start in his pro career, turning pro in May of '94. Won his first 8 fights by a knockout since that time. And now with an 18-6-0 record, you can see he's only tattooed a total of 3 other knockouts since that time. So good heavy puncher early on, trying to sit out and during the later rounds, certainly getting more in the 8, 10, and 12-round fights will certainly make you pace yourself a lot more.
Well, one thing about that is that he's stepped up his competition, you know, from those early fights in North Carolina to, you know, the big fights in New York and Las Vegas that Wooden has had later in his career. But Banks is punching more off his angles than he's showing Wooden here. But every time Wooden tries to jump in and break that rhythm with, you know, with a nice hard combination.
It's been a good round by Banks as he battles to come back in, as Wooden might have stolen a round or two. kind of get the impression this crowd is starting to warm up a little to this fight. As they've certainly seen the tempo of the fight pick up. Let's
Distance is the key.
get back into the Banks corner. We'll try to slip the other way to Wooden's corner here shortly.
See how you can hit him with that sweeping right hand?
Stand rather than sit
right hand
now.
off
This is
a double
Banks.
jab. He's not retreating as much. So when you throw that double and triple jab, sweep the right hand on top. On top of the bottom? On the top. Sweep it up high. Throw it at his shoulder. When you throw it straight at his shoulder, bring it in.
Take a look at some of the action from this round 3.
Here we see Banks moving his hands there. Nice combinations up and down. Wooden tries to come back afterwards. Wooden following Banks around.
Banks back up against the ropes. It was a good punch, but nothing that would be severe enough to keep him there as we head for the 4th round. Heavyweight explosion on the Cedric Kushner Sports Network. Traffic around the world. Tonight we're in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Our co-feature tonight, Jeff Wooden circling on the left in the white. Derrick Banks in the black on the right. The rematch of the fight back in July. One of a split decision by Wooden.
You know, the crowd here appreciates aggressiveness. That's why they like Mo Wilson in the other fight. And they're you know, Wooden's moving forward and Banks isn't. Banks is, you know, boxing from the outside. So that's why Wooden has become the crowd favorite here. And if the officials listen to the crowd, that's going to behoove Jeff Wooden as this fight progresses.
Kenny Santos along with Floyd East and Paul Sita, our 3 referees, or actually they are referees. Certainly Paul Sita on the undercard tonight, and those are our judges here. As Johnny Fabia Jr. works as the referee. And again, Banks starting to use a little of that quickness and agility on the outside to stay out of harm's way with Wooden.
No, he is, but, you know, right there he punched off it. You know, a lot of times there again he countered Wooden's jab with his own. But the point is that Derrick Banks, he's got to punch off those angles. He can't just sit there and take pictures, as they say, you know, sit there and make nice feints and not punch off it. This round, he's letting his hands move a lot more, and that'll win this fight for him if he continues to do that.
Bob, you have made mention before, not just in this fight, but every time we've seen Banks, really kind of depends on which guy shows up. If Banks, the fighter, shows up as we see him tonight, he can be a marvelous-looking fighter, and he is tonight.
I saw him beat Jonathan Grant, a big, huge monster that the MGM or the Mirage had signed out in Vegas, a big amateur killer from the penitentiary, and he just boxed circles around him. But when he saw his chance, he went in there. There's another nice counter shot by Banks. Banks has got the athleticism. He's got the speed, and speed is power in this business. But sometimes he's satisfied not to get hit. And in this business, you got to go in and you got to paint your opponent a little bit too.
Wooden, we pointed out, maybe not in the best shape, but he may need to be for a 10-rounder against a very well-prepared Derrick Banks. Got a little snapping right hand out there, but not enough probably to do damage on Banks, who right now is boxing circles around Jeff Wooden in this 4th round.
You know, we look at this stuff. Woody oftentimes, when he's fighting the big guys, you know, the Michael Grant, the Hassan Rahman, he was the guy with the quickness. He was boxing these guys and making them look bad. And now in this fight, he's in there with a real firepower, and he's the one that's got to put the pressure on him, and that's what he's trying to do right now, Sam. Put him on the ropes.
What an exchange by the heavyweights, and the crowd is loving it. Wooden starts to get second life here. Pounding away as they clutch on the ropes. The crowd loves it, but this is just the beginning tonight. Our co-feature, of course, will have the Pan-Asian Boxing Association Championship, and I would imagine after the folks have seen 10 or less rounds of this one, they'll be ready for that one. As again, Derrick Banks, what a solid round for Banks that was.
No, really, that time he punched off those angles. You know, he got there, he made those steps, he got up to the mark, then he let his hands go. Really, he was boxing circles around Woody. Got a little mad and pressured him right there at the end of the round, but it was a big round for Banks.
You can see Banks moving, bobbing, weaving on the outside. Yeah, just trying to dupe Woody in, and he comes in. And they both kind of smother punches. Wooden, however, stepping back to get some punching room, and we head for the 5th. Derrick Banks out of Detroit, Michigan, in the black. Jeff Wooden, jazzy Jeff out of Marietta, Florida. Both these fighters coming in. Bob Spagnolo has indicated in our pre-fight conversation and throughout this kind of a pivotal fight for both these fighters. They do return back to main event status with a victory here tonight, Bob.
No, a win here. One of these guys makes a good opponent for anybody in the heavyweight division, but the loser goes back to the back of the class.
Interesting strategy by Jeff Wooden in the fact that he has, after the first round, I believe he said after the first round, since that time, Bob, he has stood in between each one of these rounds.
As some guys do that, that's their shtick or whatever, but to me, I think you take every bit of the rest that you're allowed, the law allows, and then some.
Wooden trying to wing that right hand, but Banks just probably boxing as well as we've seen him box in quite a while. Outside, very alert. You see him sticking the right hand in between the gloves of Wooden. Wooden is one of those fighters also, Bob, as we've seen several close-ups, and he looks like a beaten fighter even before the fight started. He kind of has some bags under the eyes, as you saw Banks really tattoo him with a good shot there. And as the fight goes on, that swelling continues to mount under the eyes of Wooden.
Yeah, and a lot of that is, I think, you know, as a fighter takes care of himself, you know, you can see Banks here in this fight now. He's kind of really into his rhythm, but he's got to be careful because this kind of a little bit of aggression during this fight, really all Woody's doing is standing in the middle of the ring, trying to follow Banks around in the circle. Banks is only moving in one direction, but every once in a while, like right here, Wooden's going to trap him on the ropes and throw a combination and get the crowd excited. But to me, Banks is winning these rounds easily.
You saw the referee, Johnny Feeney Jr., warned both the fighters for a potential to require to the heads as they battle each other on the ropes. They moved to safer haven as far as getting some punching room. That's out in the middle, and both land some punches.
Banks is scoring some good punches to the body. And then Woody comes back and gets his. This is an excellent round for both fighters.
Good body work by Banks. Kind of ducking under. Wooden, both the fighters are listed at 6'1". Neither having an advantage. Both with 76 as their reach advantage. And only a 5-pound weight advantage for Banks.
It's the quickness advantage factor that we're looking at here. You know, Banks is getting things done. He's answering everything. He's starting and he's finishing. And Woody's in there in the middle, but not enough.
Well, at the bell will be halfway through the scheduled 10-rounder as they heat it up in Lake Charles. USSB around the U.S. bring you our boxing, and of course just ahead is our main event, and the man that will defend his Pan-Asian Boxing Association title, a Russian-born Oleg Maskayev. We have seen him have some good fights. We've seen him be a little lackluster. He comes in at 22-2, so he's had more ups than downs. But a very tough fighter with that European style, Bob.
No, and I mean, just a monster. You look at this guy, and he's got a head that looks like it weighs about 70 pounds. I mean, he's
another
a
30
big,
seconds,
strong
just
man.
walk around, keep him in the middle, and pace yourself.
Step to your right.
Action back from round 5.
To your right. Stay out of his line of fight.
And both fighters throwing some very good combinations.
Don't give him the last Stay relaxed.
Banks again always very anxious to get off this stool. Wooden has stood, and they're ready for the 6th. The explosion is designed to bring you the up-and-coming heavyweights. I think this one fits that criteria as Derrick Banks, 27-year-old heavyweight in the black. Jeff Wooden, 31-year-old heavyweight in the white. This is the rematch of a July fight, won on a split decision by Wooden. And Banks seems very determined here tonight, Bob, to certainly turn those tables around in this rematch.
You know something, Chuck McGregor made a good point to Banks in between the first and second round, which is borne out. He said the pace that Woody set in that first round, that's the pace he wants to fight this fight. And even though Woody's not sitting in the stool in the corner, he's standing. He sure is leaning up against that corner pad as this fight goes on. You know, Woody is, you know, he's a smarter fighter. He's an experienced fighter, and he, you know, but he's out quick by this kid Banks, and he's got to push this pace quite a bit more if he wants to get back in this fight. I got Banks ahead by a couple of points.
Good body shot by Wooden. Here comes Banks back with that double left jab trying to punch his way in. Banks, by the way, has been stopped only once. It was somewhat of a fluke. September of '95, Ricardo Kennedy stopped him in the 4th round. It was alleged that when Banks went down to avoid a punch, he struck his eye on the protective cup of Kennedy. The cut prevented him from continuing, and the fight was stopped after the 4th round. One of the 3 blemishes on the record of Banks is Wooden chases him in the corner and tries to land some big punches.
Now the crowd got real excited about that, but there wasn't really a significant blow. Banks just lost his balance a little bit, and Woody chased him. But let's see who can take advantage of it.
Hands free. Let's go. Hands free.
Just Woody trapping him in the corner like this sends a real positive message to the judges from Wooden's vantage point.
Referee breaking him up back to the center of the ring, and again Banks landing, getting out, got caught with a body shot on the way out by Wooden. You see Banks using that elusive style that he certainly used in past fights, but using it almost to perfection here tonight against Wooden.
But you see Derrick Banks, he's keeping his hands in such good defensive position. Wooden's hitting with a few jabs there, but sometimes Banks is just too satisfied with making his opponent miss and getting out of harm's way as opposed to scoring punches himself.
Left jab of Woody has been deteriorating throughout the fight. You can see it almost kind of a backhand slap. He tried to straighten that one out on the lead. Right hand as here comes Banks back to pull the combination off the ropes. Closing seconds of round 6. Banks lost the first fight to Wooden. He's trying to turn it around. Woody's got to turn it back in his favor in the closing round. You can see Wooden standing in the far corner as we dive back into Banks' corner.
Beautiful one.
Taking that
Let's get ready.
mouthpiece out of there.
I need your attention. Real relax.
Sergeant McGregor has called attention in that corner.
Get some water in.
You got to do it. I kind of got that round going back towards Wooden, and that was the first round in 3 or 4 rounds where Banks didn't really finish these combinations here. See, there's no significant punches landed here at all, but Woody's in charge. Look at Banks covering up in the corner. Woody's sending a message. Look, I trapped this guy over here. I'm doing what I want with him. There's no punches being landed, but that's sending a positive message to the judges that are favoring Jeff Wooden.
Couple of great angles of that same action in the corner. Here's Wooden, that's his manager, Jimmy Rosenthal, standing behind him.
Let's go.
And of course his brother James Wooden working him as we head for the 7th round. They're scheduled for 10. This is round number 7 of the explosion. Great undercard fight. Our co-feature tonight, Jeff Wooden against Derrick Banks. Wooden looked like he had things going his way. Banks started to get his style going, and I would imagine, Bob, it has been pretty strong Banks in the last 2 or 4 rounds here.
No, there's been a lot of ebb and flow to this fight, which all good fights have that. Guys having their moments and everything, but Banks has got to do something difficult. He's got to shift the momentum backwards again. Woody's an experienced fighter, and he knows he kind of got a little momentum going for him in that last round. Let's see who takes charge.
When you consider the record of Wooden, 18-6, he's had trouble in 4 of his last 5 fights, Bob, so he really is in dire need of giving himself another victory. The only victory in the last 5 fights has been against Banks.
No, he has, but look at the names. Look at the guys. The guys he's been fighting. He's stepping way up in level of competition. The Michael Grants, the Tuas.
Watch the heads, guys. Watch the heads. Both of you watch the heads, man. Get Banks, get!
Chuck McGregor is luring Banks to dig there. He uses that quickness, lands a nice 2-punch combination, but there's Woody right in front of him. Woody's going to come back and try to get hit. This is a pivotal round in this fight.
As you see, is halfway through round number 7. Wooden has been just the same prodding style. That is his style. Banks has been kind of dancing around, pulling from the outside. As Bob Spagnuolo has pointed out, working with us at ringside tonight, it has ebbed and flowed And both fighters taking advantage. The other shortcutting, but nobody being able to coast in any of the rounds so far, that's for sure.
No, not a lot of fighting being done on the ropes, you know, which is to the benefit of Banks. He doesn't want to be sitting on those ropes where Woody can really do that step around and that nice left uppercut to the body. But this was anybody's round right here, and it's still anybody's round.
Banks still working well inside when they get in close quarters. And Wooden doing a good job as well. Body shots to what looks like to be a very well-conditioned Banks. Will still take its toll, but I would imagine he is certainly taking some sparring punches to the midsection while he gets ready for this fight, and looks like he's withstanding that very well. From the outside, tiring visibly in this round. Closing seconds. Interesting to see if he sits down in the ring along the way as he just lumbers around trying to catch up with Banks as the bell comes. There's one way to kind of get the crowd back into it, and that is to finish the round with a flurry. And certainly we did.
8th round, I want you to jump on his ass, okay? Then take some time off. I want you to go after him right now. We haven't done anything strong at the beginning of the round. We got to change and do something radical. All right? He's tired. No, just jump on his ass because you had him hurt at the end of that round. You with me? I mean, like really jump on him like it was the end of the round. Now you're gonna do it at the beginning.
Tony Rosenthal talking from behind. And we'll see if that comes on as you see the exchange here in the last round. As they close the round with some pretty good flurries, Wooden almost knocking himself off balance. Well, Jeff Woods is up in his corner in between rounds. Arnie Rosenthal, his manager, said, let's go out, get this round started a little differently. Let's try to jump on him. Really looking for that opening right now.
Arnie's absolutely right. He gave Wooden good advice. He seemed like he got Banks' heart rate up at the end of that last round, but will Jeff do what Arnie's imploring him to do? Will he get out there and really try to get something started? Doesn't look like it, does it, Arnie? I mean, he's sitting there still going at that same slow pace. He's got to make something happen because Banks has begun to outbox him here.
Right now, Wooden still got his Volkswagen in neutral. Let's see if he can get it cranked up here. Banks. It's been a nice tactical fight for Banks tonight, don't you think, Bob?
Yeah, it has, but I think some of it is as a result of Jeff Wooden. He just, not to take anything from him, but I've seen him much fresher in other fights before, and he's got to take that next step to cut the ring off to pin Banks on the ropes, and he hasn't done that in this fight. He's had some success with that. He's got an excellent jab, an excellent right jab. He's had some success with it, but that jab usually leads to him working the body like he's trying to do right now, and he hasn't done enough of that in this fight. But a lot of that is this Banks. He's a moving target. He's not right there in front of you to be hit like a lot of guys in the heavyweight division.
Keep in mind now, the last time they fought, Banks languished on the ropes. Wooden still won the fight on a split decision on 2 of the cards, 96-94, and Banks won the other part, 96-94 for the split. With Wooden winning. Tonight, Banks has stayed off the rope, very tactically getting on the outside.
Well, Woody's had some good moments here. Banks has never hurt Wooden, even though he's hit him with some clean shots and turned his head back. Woody seems to, be able to absorb whatever punches Derrick Banks has, but it's just the quickness, the speed, the angles that these things are coming from.
Well, it's Arnie Rosenthal encouraging his boxer Jeff Wooden to get going in the round. Steve Munisteri, the manager of Banks, is up screaming for him to get going and take it to Wooden here in the 8th round. Half a minute to go in the 8th. Again, that jab by Wooden, almost a backhand type jab.
But Banks is resting and Wooden's coming on.
Banks throwing a combination, trying to earn the respect back to the judges. Threw a pretty good right hand. Wooden walked right through it, though. It doesn't do anything with it on the ropes.
He walked right into it. I don't know if he walked right through it. They're both showing the effects of each other's punches throughout this fight.
Mama, can you find me a stool? As Banks goes slumping to his stool.
Don't worry
in the
about
corner.
nothing. You just listen. Don't worry about anything. You stay with me.
Sarge is at
You got
attention
6 fucking minutes left, and you're winning this fight, but you're winning this fight by 1 goddamn round. Listen to me.
Hear that? 1 round off.
This guy got nothing left but his heart, and he got a huge fucking heart. Look at me. What's your name? You got a bigger heart than him. You're gonna show me you got a bigger heart than him for 6 minutes. Baby. You're gonna make this a fight. Don't let him steal it from you.
Both of these rounds.
That's one
You need
side.
both of these rounds.
Keep your hands up.
Fight's
You're dropping
dead
your
even.
hand. Keep your hands up. Don't get in too big a rush and burn yourself out. You understand me?
You gotta hurt him.
Keep your hands up.
Woody, you gotta hurt him.
1, 2, spin to your right.
Both of these rounds. Get
Well,
out
the
there,
cat and mouse game is ready to go to round 9. You've dialed into the heavyweight explosion. Sam Smith, Bob Spagnola. We fortunately at ringside to watch this one. Jeff Wooden. Jazzy in the white. Man with his back to the black is Derrick Banks. Banks encouraged to come out and fight 6 solid minutes. Wooden encouraged by his corner to get something going. Let's see if they can in the 9th round.
I'll tell you something, as much as I enjoy both these athletes out here fighting, I enjoy both of their respective corners doing a great job in there. Both told their fighters the same thing. McGregor told Banks he probably had him ahead by 1 point. He had to win these last 2 rounds. Arnie told Wooden he's probably behind and needed the last 2 rounds. Both guys. Chuck McGregor made no small mention of the fact that Jeff Wooden got a big, big heart, and if Banks leaves it up to tickers, he might come up short in this fight.
Oh, big left hand by Wooden. Banks staggers back towards the ropes. He was hurt by the left hand by Wooden. Let's see if Woody can do anything with it. Banks trapped in his own corner. Johnny Femia trying to encourage him to keep it clean as far as no clinching. But they're really pounding away. And now Wooden steps away. Another combination by Wooden. Banks with a left hook. Big strong punches by Banks.
Woody had his chance to do something, and he did. He landed his best punch of the night on Derrick Banks, but now there's a minute and a half to go in this round, and Woody seems a little sped, usually having this guy pinned on the rope. I was very surprised to see him step back, but I could see he slowed down, and Banks is getting in his right now.
Banks again worked himself into a nice rhythm from rounds 3 on, and then all of a sudden Woody started coming back. They started swapping rounds again. Now here we are in the 9th round. They're set for 10. A minute to go.
Woody just kind of following Derrick Banks around.
Wooden trying to load up for that big left hand. Banks turns with a combination in the corner. Half a minute to go in the 9th round.
Speed is such a deceptive thing in boxing, and certainly in heavyweight boxing. I've seen Jeff Wooden with top heavyweights in the world, him being the quicker guy, outmaneuvering them, getting them into bad positions. And here he is with Derrick Banks, and Woody, with all the heart in the world, he looks like the slow guy, the lead-footed guy. And here's the quickness of Derrick Banks.
He's popping away on the outside. Woody throwing a punch and getting 2 or 3 in return from Banks. As matchmaker Bill Penn has put together a dandy on our co-feature tonight from Lake Charles. Well, Bob Spagnola, we knew it was going to be a good fight.
Hands up, you drop your hands too much, you understand? When you throw what you're going to throw, on your bad guy to your right. So out of his line of fire, you're not doing that enough. You understand me? Straight to
giving
working,
it
back to the straight
everything.
two. Step in.
Somebody's going to go take a step up, and somebody's going to take a step back, but I don't think in either direction anybody's going to take any giant steps.
None. If you want it. But you got to want it. You got to want it in here. And you got the ability. You got the lead, but it's close. We don't want to take any chances. We want to win this last round.
We touch your gloves on the way out.
Touch gloves, and then after that, no friends. Everything's short.
Take a look at some of the action
Throw
from
it
the ninth
at
round.
his right shoulder.
And you can hear in that corner of Banks, not a lot of strategy. It's kind of like inside. You got to dig down in your gut and want to win this one in the 10th round. As they battle in the 9th, another good solid round. Bell sounds. Johnny Femia Jr. holds the bell for just a moment. As they bring him into the center of the ring, they tuck gloves, and here we go for the final 3 minutes. I love Chuck McGregor's comment. Touch gloves. After that, no friendly gesture.
Yeah, you know, these guys are friends. They've got their camps are friends. They hang around each other, but they both want to win in a big way. You know, Arnie's a winner. Chuck's a winner. Eunice, all these guys. You know, this is an important fight. Nobody's undefeated in this fight, but it means a lot to both these guys and both these camps.
Bob, does it come down to a fighter winning the 10th round to sway this match?
Well, I've got Banks winning by 1 point right now, and it could go either way. Obviously, you know, Wooden's been the aggressor, although I think Banks has been given a better account of himself than he did in the first fight. And right now, so far in the last round, I think he's got more left than Wood.
We are looking at the potential, certainly maybe a draw, but certainly the very likelihood of another split decision between these two guys. Think of the way the judges can be seen from various angles around this ring. 10th and final round, a minute 45 to go. It has been some very good non-stop action. The cat and mouse game was played early. Wooden started to do things early. Banks kind of took control back. They've been closed since that time. And unofficially, Banks is slightly ahead of the unofficial call. 10th round, Bob. How's it going?
Well, Wooden just landed a nice combination, and here comes Banks back with an excellent combination of his own.
This crowd is loving it here in Lake Charles.
You got to give Bill Benton credit, you know, even though it's a rematch, these two guys, you know, come in. It's so hard to match these heavyweights in even fights, and we're seeing a real good one here tonight.
A minute to go now in the 10th. And this is only the co-feature, folks. The main event is still to come. Good strong punches by Wooden, backs up Banks, comes right back out. Good double left jab. Wooden, you can see, is very badly tiring, even more so as we reach every last second of the 10th round, but not giving up. May have caught Banks with a body shot today.
I didn't really see it. A lot of times Bank gets off balance because of the way he jumps around. It hasn't been as a result of a strong blow landed. And there he lands a nice combination on Woody. But look at Woody doing some of his best body work of the fight last year in the last 30 seconds of the 10th round.
We're going to let you watch it and enjoy this one as they battle royal. Last round could turn the tide. And there's the bell as Banks landed a big right hand. What a nice fight tonight, Jeff Wooden, Derrick Banks. That's Jeff Wooden, who won by a split decision the last time they fought in July. And Derrick Banks out of Detroit, Michigan, coming back, wanted to try to turn the tables. Bob, this was indeed, and I think even the managers talked about it. I think Steve Monasteri made the comment. Even the last fight, I thought he said, was kind of like the spurts. And we saw that tonight for these two fighters again.
No, they did. I'm looking down here at Arnie Rosenthal, looking over my scorecard. Excellent matchup, but I gave the fight to Derrick Banks on 1 point on a split, on a very close decision.
Which means going to that last round, you pretty well gave that an even round, didn't you?
Well, I didn't want it. It was a close round, but I didn't think it was enough for Woody to win the fight. I thought Banks had done more, although Woody certainly had his moments.
Greg Chuckard, by the way, will be joining us up in the ring, talking to the winner of this fight. And I'll tell you what, this is a fight you maybe like to visit with both those guys, getting their impression of what's happening tonight. But certainly the winner will have his conversation, and you see two very tough fighters tonight. Yes, Wooden is 31. Has been in there with some very tough customers. He may be right on the top of the plateau, may be sliding a little bit. Banks may be on his way back up, but Who's to tell after the decision will be made? We've got the numbers. Here's Mark Bureau.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a unanimous decision. Judge Kenny Santez scores it 96-95. Judge Floyd East scores it 96-94. And Judge Paul Cita scores it 98-93 to the winner by unanimous decision, Dangerous Derrick Banks.
Pinned by a single point by Banks. Not sure the crowd likes it here, but you can't be really disappointed on either one of these guys winning and losing, Bob.
No, it was a close fight, and I think that the crowd here in Louisiana has always favors the more aggressive fighter. The guy that Banks did a little bit more moving for their taste here, and I think that's why they were against him. But I gave him a fight. But hey, excellent fight, excellent match, and hey, maybe they'll do the rubber match.
Well, it is now 1-1. The first one going split decision to Wooden. This one going unanimous decision. And upstairs, Derrick Banks visits with our Greg Juckett. Greg?
I'm here with the victorious Derrick Banks. We saw Chapter 1 back in July, a close decision going for Wooden that night. Tonight, a decision going for Derrick Banks. A little happier ending this time, Derrick. How do you feel?
First of all, I'd like to thank God for blessing me, keeping both of us safe. He didn't give me no credit last time, so I took it personal this time. Because I thought last time could have went either way, but he didn't say it. So I took it a little personal, but this time it was close, but I thought I won.
A little bit different in the corner this time. Chuck McGregor is in now. He came in 10 pounds lighter than the first time, 233 this last time, 223 this time. Was the conditioning a difference?
It was a big difference because Jeff is tough. And I knew that was what I needed. And my manager, Steve Minister, they got me the right people behind me, and that's why I like to say hi to my man Billy Gonzalez in New York.
A little less, more slugging this time, a little less clinching. Were you willing to trade with him more this time? You felt more confident coming in?
He make you fight that way. That's his style. You got to fight him. You can't box him. Rockman fought him, Grant fought him, Tua fought him. So he's tough, and that's the way you got to fight him.
Let me bring in your manager, Steve Munisteri, here real quick. Steve, must be a great thrill to get this rematch victory over Wooden. What's possibly next for Derrick now?
Well, I think what we showed is he can beat a top contender. Wooden was in there, gave a majority decision to Michael, lost a majority decision to Michael Grant, David Tua. I think Jeff Wooden's a gatekeeper to higher competition. Derrick was very inactive, 12 fights in 6 years. Now we're going to try to bring him in 4 fights in 4 months. We just are now getting him in shape. If you can beat Jeff Wooden, then I think you can progress to the next step. So we want to get 2 or 3 more fights, and then we'll put him in with anybody. And we're looking at Kirk Johnson. Hey, Kirk, if you want us, we're ready to go get you. David Tua backed out of a fight. We have a lawsuit against Main Events. Hey, David Tua, if you say you're really the number 5 contender in the world, come back, honor your contract, we'll drop the lawsuit, and you fight Derrick Banks, and he'll show you and the world why you and your management have been avoiding him.
Down the stretch, you knew you were in a close fight. Your voice is hoarse from yelling. Do you think you helped him over the top in the last few rounds there?
Well, I thought in the last fight it was even going into the 8th round, and I thought we lost it in round 9 and 10, and we lost it 6-4 in 2 of the cards. I thought it was a dead even fight in about the end of the 6th round. So I figured if his manager, his trainer, and his co-trainer all were telling him the same thing, and if we let him know the urgency in our voices, he would know that despite what he might think, he needed to go out and win those last 2 rounds. What I was most proud of was the fact when the fight was on the line, when it was toe-to-toe, when he was in there with a guy with a tremendous heart, he was able to match that heart and win the last 2 rounds.
Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you.
We'll go back to Sam and Bob at ringside.
Thank you very much, Greg. We're going to have to get Steve Munisteri a Corona. I mean, he really needs that one. His man celebrates tonight as he gets the win. A unanimous decision again as he gets it. That's Derrick Banks picking up the win on the rematch. Coming up, our main event, the Pan Asian Boxing Association.